So here we are outside the United States Capitol on the National Mall. Somebody put up an impromptu statue celebrating the friendship, the great friendship of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Every once in a while, living here in Washington, D.C., some things pop up as protest, as flexing the constitutional right that we have to free speech. And yesterday, a statue popped up right down on the National Mall across from the United States Capitol of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. It's like a fake bronze statue, or it appears to be. I didn't touch it, but we went down there. Brittany Page and I went down there, and it's Donald Trump frolicking with his best friend Jeffrey Epstein, and there's placards. Anyway, I think it's fantastic when people use their abilities and their talents to exercise their free speech rights while also messaging something that's very critical in this moment in American history. And one, it's to keep this story in the headlines so that we can finally get some answers. And hopefully, the most important aspect is to get some justice for Jeffrey Epstein's victims and the potential victims of Donald Trump, the credibly accused Donald Trump of horrific crimes against the most innocent in our society. So here's me down there. We did a couple of things. It's always awkward for me to be talking into a microphone when there's like an audience of people watching. So it's born out of my own insecurities, I guess. But here's me down there talking a little bit about what I see, and I read from the placards and I get some good shots of it. But this is what's going on. And I tell you what, we'll play that and then I'll have some thoughts on the other side. So here we are outside, obviously Washington, D.C. outside the United States Capitol on the National Mall. Somebody put up an impromptu statue celebrating the friendship, the great friendship of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And on the placards, which I'll cut to in a minute, I'll go over there and read them. It is just a recreation of the birthday card that Donald Trump sent his best friend of 15 years, Jeffrey Epstein. Activism comes in many different forms. Some people are good at being on the phone. Some people are artistic. Some people have the messaging strategy to include this type of thing outside of the United States Capitol in view of all of the MAGA tourists that come here to visit the nation's capital, to keep in the front of mind the fact that Donald Trump is a credibly accused sexual assaulter of women and children, and keeping this in the front of minds of tourists, of Americans, young and old, because this should not be forgotten. All of the distractions that Donald Trump creates on a daily basis, from having comedians fired for making jokes about him, to all of the other distraction nonsense that he does. This should be front of mind. So I'll bring you over and I'll read the placards and we'll get some better photos of it. But good news, and thanks to whoever put this up. Here we have it. Donald J. Trump. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. In honor of Friendship Month, we celebrate the long-lasting bond between President Donald J. Trump and his closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein. There must be more to life than having everything. And then, of course, Jeffrey Epstein. Nor will I, since I always know what it is. Yes, we do. Come to think of it, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. What I really love is how they're frolicking. Look how happy Trump looks being next to his child rapist best friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Let's center it so the United States Capitol is right in the background to remind Republicans in Congress that this is not normal, this is not good, and this is who they're defending. A credibly accused rapist of children and an already court-adjudicated sexual assaulter of women. Look, there's a number of different reasons why this is good. One is to keep the story in the headlines. The other thing is that there's a lot of MAGA hats down on the National Mall, tourists, high school groups, people who are ostensibly Trump supporters who come to the nation's capital on vacation for weekends just to see the museums, tour the Capitol. And a lot of these people don't follow the news as readily or as acutely or as dedicatedly as you do. And so these types of things, it needs to be communicated to the broader public that things aren't as hunky-dory as they would think. There is a resistance effort, and people are unhappy with what's taking place in this country. We are not approving of the National Guard, the military, occupying the city. We're not okay with masked, armed agents of the states literally kidnapping people off the streets of American cities all over the country, not just here in Washington, D.C. We're not okay with the federal takeover of this city, harassing citizens. We're not okay with it. And they need to know that. And they're not going to hear that on Fox News because dissent doesn't make its way through. If they're watching the news, it's likely that. So this is a good thing. I think it's fantastic. Whoever did it, whoever put it up, kudos to you. Thank you for your patriotism. And that's what this is. Dissent is patriotism. Criticism, in order to make the country better, is patriotism. So I'd love your thoughts on this. If you live in D.C. and you've been down there, if you haven't been down there, get down there, get some pictures of it, spread the word. Ultimately, I'm hoping to use my platform for that.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. Don't take it. That's it. There's nothing much to say. Don't take Tylenol.
That's right. Follow the advice of Donald Trump. And you too can look like a glazed ham with deep vein thrombosis.
Just a public service announcement for those who might not be aware. It is not illegal to criticize the President of the United States. In fact, I believe it to be patriotic to do so. It is our duty to criticize the President of the United States when warranted. And even if it's not warranted, still not illegal. Jimmy Kimmel, on that note, returned to work last night. In most U.S. markets, he is still having his free speech rights violated at the behest of the government through Sinclair and Nexstar. Cha-cha-cha. But I want to talk about the Streisand effect a little bit. I want to talk about the fecklessness of Donald Trump, who drew more eyeballs to Jimmy Kimmel, more looky-loos, more people who might be curious about what he has to say and what all the hubbub was. What was all that kerfuffle about? Look at these old man terms I'm using. So Jimmy Kimmel returned last night to an audience much larger than his normal audience, to be sure. I don't know the exact numbers, but it would strain reason to assume that it was a smaller audience or a normal audience. People want to know what was going on. And because of Donald Trump trying to restrict and violate Jimmy Kimmel's free speech, not trying to, doing it, him and Brendan Carr, a new audience was there to behold the comedy of Jimmy Kimmel and his criticisms for Donald Trump. And it didn't begin this way, but this was included. Jimmy Kimmel playing clips of Donald Trump talking about how thin-skinned he is and always has been.
What about also those who say that you're being, in recent months, awfully thin-skinned?
I've always been thin-skinned. I've been thin-skinned from day one.
Welcome back to Jimmy Kimmel Live. We are still on the air in most of the country, except ironically for Washington, D.C., where we have been preempted. We are off the air in Nashville, New Orleans, Portland, Oregon, Salt Lake City, and St. Louis, where none of my wife's family is able to watch the show tonight. So sorry, Aunt Sharon. Sorry, Aunt Maureen. You'll have to go to YouTube, I guess.
And therein lies the problem. That he is still being punished. His free speech is still being violated, again, at the behest of Donald Trump, at the behest of Donald Trump's lackey, Brendan Carr, the Federal Communications Commissioner chairman. A lot of good stuff was said. Jimmy Kimmel went on into this thing. I'm going to play this very brief clip where he talks about, look, this show, meaning his show, because my show is very important. He says, this show's not important. What's important is living in a country where a show like this can exist. And that is what we should all be fighting for, whether you're MAGA or not. If you've noticed, there's been a lot of conservatives, people like Ted Cruz. I don't know if you've heard the clip of him doing the worst Italian mafioso impression in the history of Italian mafioso impressions. But even he is like, look, I'm really happy that Jimmy Kimmel would his fake stutter thing that he does to make himself relatable or whatever. He's happy that Jimmy Kimmel has been fired, but it should be a warning sign to everybody if the government has this kind of power to control your speech. Even Ted Cruz believes this is dangerous. But here's Jimmy Kimmel explaining, look, it's not me, Jimmy Kimmel, that's important. It's not my show that's important. It's what the values that we adhere to, what they say about who we are and the country we live in.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
And he's right. His show, no individual show is so important. It's the concept of having the freedom to criticize, having the freedom to make jokes in Jimmy Kimmel's case. He did not just make it about himself. He talked about what the important issues are, what the dangers are that we face in this country, especially related to free speech, especially related, again, to the only occupation listed in the United States Constitution, that of the free and fair press and their protections under the Constitution. And Jimmy Kimmel talked about that, not at length, but he certainly covered some of the headlines that I've been talking about the Pentagon restricting free speech, the Pentagon curtailing the free and fair press and what they can report, that they have to register with the Pentagon. Watch Jimmy Kimmel.
He's gunning for our journalists too. He's suing them. He's bullying them. Over the weekend, his foxy friend Pete Hegseth announced a new policy that requires journalists with Pentagon press credentials to sign a pledge promising not to report information that hasn't been explicitly authorized for release. That includes unclassified information. They want to pick and choose what the news is. I know that's not as interesting as muzzling a comedian, but it's so important to have a free press, and it is nuts that we aren't paying more attention to it. Walter Cronkite must be spinning in his grave right now. He's dead, right?
Yeah. And he is right. That, among many, many, many other issues of Donald Trump and his tyrannical rule in this second term. Unfortunately, the situation we face in America right now is that Donald Trump is attempting to do all of these things. He's ratcheted up the insanity because of the fact that he's distracting from the Epstein files. And Jimmy Kimmel had a joke about that too.
He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly. He might have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this now.
Yeah, maybe it's time. Maybe this will be the thing that he needs to distract from by doing that. It's funny. The poking fun and the mockery did not end there. And of course, with any good comedy writer, Jimmy Kimmel has a team of them, a room filled with comedy writers who do a good job. And Jimmy Kimmel is just their messenger. He's just repeating their words that they write, the brilliance that they come up with. And one of the things they talked about yesterday, again, pointing to a very important issue, is Donald Trump's attack on acetaminophen. Tylenol, acetaminophenidina. Couldn't pronounce it if you remember. And Jimmy Kimmel talked about his attack on Tylenol and then played a mashup of it, like a back-to-back, really pointing out the absurdity of Donald Trump's weird obsession with babies and liquid and Tylenol and trying to tie that to autism. All of it's nonsense. All of it's scary. All of it is absolutely shining a light on the lack of efficacy, the lack of seriousness of a Donald Trump government. Here again, Jimmy Kimmel.
Nothing bad can happen. Let's do it now. I was just saying to Bobby and the group, let's do it now. Nothing bad can happen. It can only good happen. But with Tylenol, don't take it. Don't take it.
That's right. Follow the advice of Donald Trump. And you, too, can look like a glazed ham with deep vein thrombosis. It can only good happen. This is Tylenol we're talking about. The thing that you take when they won't let you take anything that works. It's never, they gave me Tylenol. It's always, only gave me was Tylenol.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. With Tylenol, don't take it. Don't take it. Don't use Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Fight like hell not to take it. I think you shouldn't take it. Don't take Tylenol. The baby gets a shot. They say, here, take a cup of Tylenol. I've heard that for years. Take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't have your baby take Tylenol. Don't give Tylenol to the baby. Don't give Tylenol to the baby. Don't give your baby Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. Don't take it. So that's it. There's nothing much to say. Don't take Tylenol. Just don't take it. And I just say it again. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it.
So obviously those two clips I mashed together to give you an idea of what the show was like last night. So listen, welcome back, Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know Jimmy, but I think he does a great job. I think he's a good and decent person. He, like me, is a public crier. So I feel like I've got some kinship with Mr. Kimmel. I've cried on this show, sometimes obviously it's always unexpectedly, but sometimes it comes out of nowhere. I get emotional, and I appreciate that about him. I appreciate him for his patriotism, his love of country, and his putting himself in harm's way for that love of country. That shows dedication, and that shows loyalty that a lot of people don't have. And I'm not even just talking about Republicans, obviously, them.
I fear that we will not have an election in 2028. I really mean that in the core of my soul, unless we wake up to the code red, what's happening in this country.
You know that we are in a precarious spot in the United States of America when multiple different independent governors, independent of one another, are going on the news to ring the alarm bell about us losing our democracy. And that's what's happening right now. J.B. Pritzker went on with Morning Joe yesterday, and Gavin Newsom with Stephen Colbert last night, and they're both talking about the same message. Now, obviously, they are both Democrats, but they are opponents relative to each one of these dudes wants to be president of the United States next. Both of these dudes are going to be running for president. So they are not just allies in democracy or both members of the Democratic Party. They're also political opponents, and they will be in the primary. And I say that to say that I don't think they're communicating or coordinating on messaging strategy. It wouldn't behoove either one of them to do so relative to their upcoming political battle. But they are saying the exact same thing. They are sounding the same alarm. They are worried about losing our democracy, and Donald Trump, which we're witnessing it in public view, him set the stage to interfere in the 2026 midterm and 2028 general election. First, we're going to start with J.B. Pritzker, this brief clip, about a minute long. And I want you to pay attention to what he's talking about, because it is happening before our eyes, but you just need to put the pieces together.
Well, I believe that one of the reasons Donald Trump wants to send troops into American cities is because he wants to be able to take control of the 2026 elections. Remember that back in 2020, he and Michael Flynn, the former general and former advisor to the president, talked about actually taking control of the ballot boxes in 2020 because they didn't trust the outcome of the election. Now, if they've got troops in cities and it becomes a kind of norm for people, then it won't be abnormal for them when they're going to vote having troops at the ballot boxes. he'll say that he's protecting the ballot. And if he thinks there's some kind of fraud, and what I mean by that is if he thinks that his party isn't going to win, then they very well could do what they suggested they were going to do in 2020, which is take control of the ballot boxes. So I believe that is what this is about. It's about intimidating people from going to the polls who would not vote for his party, and about the ability to take control of the elections if it doesn't go his way.
I'm glad he adjusted the language, because it's not just about if Donald Trump believes there was fraud in an election. Donald Trump is going to do what he's going to do if he sees the outcome not go his way. If he thinks that there's a chance that a Democrat, Donald Trump claims to have won California, if not for the fraud. California, the city of Los Angeles, the state that contains Los Angeles and San Francisco. That state, he believes he won in grand, overwhelming fashion. He said the same thing about Massachusetts, maybe the bluest state in all of the union. Ridiculous. So if Donald Trump, using that addled moron brain, wants to interfere, he'll make up a presupposition to do so. Gavin Newsom going on just about the same thing last night on Stephen Colbert, talking about future elections and what he is really fearful about. And I think it's important, and we all need to start repeating these ideas so our neighbors and acquaintances and coworkers and family can also start waking up to the reality that Donald Trump is going to interfere with democracy, just like he's done in the past. After all, he attempted to overthrow the United States government in an effort to stay in office.
We are struggling to communicate. We're struggling to win back now the majority in the House of Representatives, and that's a big part of what I'm doing, not just today in terms of the work out here, raising money, but also raising awareness around how Donald Trump is trying to rig the midterm elections and how I fear that we will not have an election in 2028. I really mean that. And the core of my soul, unless we wake up to the code red, what's happening in this country, and we wake up soberly to how serious this moment is.
He is right. Unless we wake up, code red, I don't know if he's watching too much Few Good Men, but unless we wake up to the 5-alarm fire that is taking place in this country right now, that not enough there's too many media that are sleeping on their job, that are missing the moment, that are focusing on other things, that are trying to balance, the Democrats are just as bad as Republicans or whatever nonsense. And we need people to start waking up to this, because in the absence of the media doing their job, there's not enough of me. There's not enough people who do my job to keep people attuned to what's taking place. And there's still a wide swath of the people that would not agree to the reality we're living in. And Gavin Newsom addressed that as well.
We had a 15-year-old disabled kid in Los Angeles, was waiting for his sister to come out of high school, and they pulled out guns on this kid. They pulled out guns and handcuffed this young child. That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process, no oversight, zero accountability, happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. And so I'm deeply proud that I had the privilege of signing the nation's first bill to address the issue of masking, also to require you have simple identification, to your point. I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back. And so these are not just authoritarian tendencies, these are authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government. You saw what Stephen Miller said last week. This should put chills up fine, called the Democratic Party an extremist organization. Basically a terrorist organization, saying he's going after his enemies. You saw the tweet that Donald Trump sent out, Truth Social, basically telling Pam Bondi, I want these 3 people taken out. That's happening in the United States. This can't be normalized. None of this can be normalized.
He's right. If you're in a marginalized, traditionally abused population in this country, you know what's going on. Unfortunately, There's many, many white people in this country, middle-class white people who are comfortable in their existence, who don't feel like they're a target. If you're black, if you're brown, if you're an immigrant, if you're gay, if you're trans, absolutely, you know you've got a target on your back, sometimes literally. But if you're white, middle class, doing okay, you got a 401k, you own your home, you've got no problems. Yeah, you don't like what you see, but it's not really affecting you. It's gonna come for you. They're gonna come for you. He will come for you. Because fascism always needs a target. Fascism always needs an enemy. And in the absence of a legitimate enemy, they'll invent one. There's always a boogeyman hiding under the bed that needs to be vanquished when you're Donald Trump. He's, after all, solving a crime problem that didn't exist. You will become that crime problem or that other unnamed problem that doesn't exist that needs to be solved. Wake up. Wake up. I've got another one here, and it's more on... Let's talk about this. I wanted to end this on this, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into it because people get squirrely when you start criticizing Democrats. But listen, if a nationally prominent Democrat is criticizing the party, and the brand is how he uses the term, I have criticism for that because it's not the brand, it's actual leaders. He's talking about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, in my view, of his criticisms. And it's time for them to resign. It's time for them to step down from their leadership positions. They don't have to leave Congress. They don't have to leave the Senate and the House. But certainly, we need people who are ready for this moment, who are born for this moment. I put it in terms of mafia movies. We need a wartime consigliere in this moment. Not people who are begging Donald Trump to come to the negotiating table like Chuck Schumer, who can't get over himself thinking that that's going to get the job done or that's resistance in any way. And here's Gavin Newsom talking about that very thing while missing the true element of what he's talking about when he's talking about the brand of the Democratic Party.
Why do you think it so deeply resonates with people? Why do you think this has made such a difference? I mean, you're glad it is, but what do you think people are responding to? Just the fight. I think, this is a tough time. I'm aware. But there's been a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of folks that honestly just don't know we're going to get our country back. And I get it. This guy is flooding the zone. He's dominating the narratives. Facts don't seem to matter. Mm-hmm. And Democrats, frankly, have had a difficult time pushing back. And Democrats feel that, times there's sort of this weakness that dominates our brand and our party. And I think what people appreciate is that we're willing to fight, and not only fight symbolically by having a little bit fun, but fight substantively. We have 41 lawsuits against this son of a bitch. We're pushing back and we're winning. And we're filling a void on a lot of issues. I'm out here for Climate Week. California is the tentpole in terms of climate policy in this country. As he walks away from Paris, he walks away from leadership, moral authority around the rest of the world. California is trying to assert itself on health policy. Same thing. We created this West Coast Collaborative. We're not going to listen to this guy. We're not going to listen to him trying to pronounce acetaminophen, or we're not going to sit there, listen to all that. No one trusts the guy.
He's being cute with the word there. And Democrats, frankly, have had a difficult time pushing back. There's sort of this weakness that dominates our brand. There's no weakness that dominates the brand. I'm not worried about the brand of the Democratic Party. I'm worried about leadership. I'm worried about actually protecting people's lives and well-beings and freedoms and liberties. And we're not getting it done. Largely, we're not getting it done. It's a problem that we can pull just a handful of people who are actually doing resistance, and that leaders are not. Hakeem Jeffries refusing to endorse Mamdani, the Democratic nominee for mayor in New York. Chuck Schumer just begging Donald Trump in this weird, obsequious way for a meeting to come to the negotiating table, as though Donald Trump gives a single f*** about negotiating and not shutting down the government. They exist in a political order that no longer exists. They're operating as though it's the 1990s when it is not. And I'm glad to hear I'm glad to see Gavin Newsom talk in these terms, albeit kind of milquetoast in nature. We do need aggression. We do need leadership. We do need people with their eye on the ball and exist in the reality that we currently have on us. You can't create a new reality. It's not MAGA world here. Anyway, I would love your opinion. I hope that you are on the page that Gavin Newsom is on, that I have been on for months and months and months, for years, about Donald Trump, that this is an existential crisis for our democracy. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. You can click the subscribe button below this video. You can also like and follow the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily. I would appreciate that. It goes a long way towards supporting what we do here. If you want to talk about this, we can do so in the comments wherever you're watching the video, on YouTube or on Facebook, or you can call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com.
Do you think that there's anything he's done right since coming back into office? Does anything come to mind?
You know, the reality is he is destroying our government, our institutions, the principles and values upon which we're founded.
Kamala Harris wrote a book. She is on a book tour right now, and she was on The View yesterday. And like any other time that you go on one of these shows and they give the reins to the Republican panelist, in this case, it's Alyssa Farah Griffin, former Donald Trump staffer, someone who volunteered to work to propel the agenda of Donald Trump forward in the first term. Not great. She's another one of these people who Democrats, not all, but many Democrats view as some kind of an ally, because eventually she came out and opposed Donald Trump. But when she had the chance to volunteer to work for a presidential administration, she volunteered for Donald Trump. Never forget that. In these times when fascism is so dangerous, she volunteered to take a job for a fascist. Again, don't forget that. So when they gave her the opportunity to ask a question of Kamala Harris, the former vice president of the United States of America and the former nominee to be president, Alyssa Farah Griffin asked the most stupid question that it's akin to, what about all the good things Hitler did? That's ultimately what she asked Kamala Harris. It is frustrating. It is supremely frustrating to me, and I hope to you, but brace yourself for the most ridiculous asswipe question that you may hear this entire week.
Vice President, since Trump has taken office, everything that you warned about has happened. Do you sometimes just want to scream, "I told y'all so," and feel free to do it right now? I mean,
Sonny, nothing comes to mind.
So I do want to ask you, because you've not held back your criticisms of President Trump today. Do you think that there's anything he's done right since coming back into office?
Does anything come to mind?
You know, nothing comes to mind.
Nothing.
Anna,
your question is next.
I can leave it at that, but let me just say that I'm sure there are some things, but the reality is he is destroying our government, our institutions, the principles and values upon which we're founded. I mean, what he has done to attack a free and independent press, free speech, what he has done to attack the people of our country in such a vicious way, I find there are no redeeming qualities.
What's the compulsion to ask this question? Oh, do you think that there's anything that he's done right since coming back to... What's it fucking matter if he's done one thing right? It's the same argument that people have for the RFK Jr. Yeah, he wants to do away with vaccines while there's a measles epidemic in the country. But yeah, you know, food dye and processed food, that's a real serious consideration. What? Yeah, he's killed a whole bunch of people, but he sure is a good dad. What? What is the driving obsession with trying to humanize someone who is anything other. Trying to make, well, these got some good qualities too. Some people just don't have good qualities, Alyssa Farah Griffin. Some people are just pieces of shit. Some people volunteer to work for fascists in a dangerous time in the history of our republic. Some people. This is an asshole question. This gets to nothing. This doesn't humanize Donald Trump. It only puts Kamala Harris in a position to seem like the baddie. Well, yeah, no, I don't really see anything good that he's done. Giving MAGA World and Fox News the ability to create this clip and paint something bad out of it. That she's ungrateful or whatever. Just absolute nonsense. The conversation obviously shifted, talked a little bit about the past election that she lost. I've had a lot of criticisms for the campaign. Kamala Harris wasn't my choice in 2020. She certainly wasn't my first choice in 2024. But I do think she's a good and decent person. She's done things as Attorney General of the state of California that I wasn't appreciative of. Just like any politician, they're going to disappoint you at some point, right? Just like the list of 95 Democrats who voted to honor the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. There's a lot of names on that list that I'm bummed out about because I respect them. Politicians are always going to disappoint you. You need to measure against how disappointed you are or how much of a deal breaker that disappointment is, right? So here's Kamala Harris on the future of the Democratic Party. And I think she says some things that are really smart here that we really ought to be paying attention to, kind of akin to all of the talk about who's going to be the Joe Rogan for the left, that nonsense conversation. Watch Kamala Harris.
So is that the strategy for Democrats going forward, fighting back more in the mode of Trump, going into the gutter? What is the strategy for Democrats fighting forward?
I think there's some work to be done, which includes one of the things that I think the 24 election made very clear is the American people want their immediate needs met. And, we paid a lot of good attention and time on issues like the infrastructure bill. If we had done it differently, and I think we should have considered doing it differently, we would have instead, in the Build Back Better bill, put the family plan before we did that. Mm-hmm. And so we would have done affordable childcare and paid leave and addressed some of the more immediate needs of people. Mm-hmm. So going forward, I think that has to be an imperative. We will have the plan for what needs to happen in the long term because those are the most intractable issues, but we need to meet the immediate needs of the people. Second, I'd say, look, I'm kind of just, I'm a bit done with the punditry around everybody looking for a messiah, the savior of the Democratic Party. There are so many superstars in the party.
Yes, that's true.
And who are doing very, very good work. And it is important, I think, that we see that instead of having these endless conversations about who is the one, understand there are many. Yes. And similarly with the issues. What is the one message that Democrats need to have? There are many, but I would frame them in the context of the immediate needs of the people. And then, I guess my last point is this. You got to fight fire with fire. Mm-hmm. And
will you run again?
So
will you run again?
Going forward,
will you run again? You like to run again?
That's not in my immediate focus. I'm doing my book tour, and please everybody come out. I'm going to a lot of cities.
You gotta fight fire with fire. Again, she's saying the same thing I've said, but in different words. We now live with a different political order than the ones that have existed in the past. It's time to stop acting as though we have good faith partners in governance with Republicans. We don't. And we also need to stop, like she said, looking for some messiah figure, some person who's going to provide a panacea for all that ails our political times. That person doesn't exist. What we do need I will say, that she did not say. We need a Democratic Party that is willing to shift to the left, that is not so recalcitrant about progress, that doesn't demonize people like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, Zohran Mamdani. We need a political party that is willing to actually be the party that is a big tent that all kinds of ideas can exist within. Because during the campaign, people bemoaned these resistor groups that refused to vote for Kamala Harris, who campaigned against her in word and in deed. And now, because they were too far left, the Democratic Party would have said, there are many in the Democratic Party, not as a whole. But now that someone has captured the enthusiasm of voters in New York City, like Zohran Mamdani, they are running for the hills. They're doing the same thing they criticized about the people who said it was Genocide Joe and tried to rope Kamala Harris into the absolute nonsense and the lies, as though the vice president sets the foreign policy objectives for the administration. The criticism is warranted. And I'm glad that finally, I just talked the previous video of Gavin Newsom criticizing the Democratic Party. Here's Kamala Harris doing the same thing. She needs to maybe point that criticism back to herself and her campaign. They followed consultant talking points and focus group nonsense rather than just going off their gut and what the important message was. It's not the one thing that lost the election, but it certainly added to the compendium of reasons that they did lose.
UN globalist staffers were basically plotting to set up the president of the United States. And first it was the escalator, then it was the teleprompter. We have people, including the United States Secret Service, who are looking into this to try to get to the bottom of it.
It wouldn't be a Wednesday in MAGA world if there wasn't a insidious conspiracy theory that's etched out in the minds of evil people to take down Donald Trump. Everything's a conspiracy. Everything is a mystery. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to make sure these people are punished. There will be revenge. There will be retribution. And the same thing is happening right now after Donald Trump got on an escalator in the United Nations yesterday and it malfunctioned. He whined about it at the UN. There's video of it. Where do we begin? Let's reverse the way I was going to do it. Here is the moment that the escalator stopped working. Spoiler alert, it was his own team that did the fucking it up. But here's Donald Trump getting on the escalator while I'm talking. We'll just play it now because the questions they're asking don't matter. And he walks up to the escalator and it stops working. Secret Service doesn't seem alarmed, doesn't seem like a big deal. And they're freaking out over this. Donald Trump actually took to the floor of the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York and took time out of his speech to complain not only about the teleprompter that stopped working, but also the escalator that stopped working, but also the teleprompter. It's a whine fest. It's a snivel-palooza from Donald Trump every time he opens his stupid, stinky suck. Every time. Even on a stage like this. Watch him complain, and then we'll get to what happened, and also Karoline Leavitt dedicating time during an interview with Jesse Waters, saying that she's going to get to the bottom of this. She will provide retribution about this.
Got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. Thank you. I think I should just do it the other way. It's easier.
So he's blaming somebody. Somebody's going to be in trouble for this. Somebody's out to get him. There's a plot against Donald Trump because the escalator stopped working. It wasn't even UN staff. This is from ABC News. UN says Trump's team to blame for non-working escalator and teleprompter. President Donald Trump used an inoperable escalator and a defective teleprompter at the United Nations to paint the global body as dysfunctional. But, here's the article, but it turns out the cause was closer to Trump. Stephanie Dujarric, the UN spokesman, said a videographer from the U.S. delegation who ran ahead of him triggered the stop mechanism at the top of the escalator. Quote, the safety mechanism is designed to prevent people or objects accidentally being caught and stuck in or pulled into the gearing, Dujarric said in a statement. The videographer may have inadvertently triggered the safety function. And then about the teleprompter, a UN official speaking on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the issue contributed that one to his side as well, saying the White House was operating the teleprompter for the president. So after all of that, giving you the what for, giving you the background details, here's Karoline Leavitt with Jesse Waters, of course, turning this thing into a vast conspiracy against Donald Trump, a plot against the president, one that needs retribution, one that needs revenge. And the tip of the spear, the inciter of that revenge will be Karoline Leavitt.
All right, Karoline, it does appear to be sabotage with the escalator and the teleprompter. What is the White House going to do about that?
Well, Jesse, that's definitely what it appears to be to me, and that's why I put out a statement earlier. There was some concerning reporting over the weekend from the London Times, as you pointed out, that UN globalist staffers were basically plotting to set up the president of the United States. And first it was the escalator, then it was the teleprompter, and then Katie Pavlich from Town Hall, who we offered a seat in the press pool to cover the president's historic speech today, noticed that the audio inside of the room was much lower and different for the president of the United States than the previous speaker. So when you put all of this together, it doesn't look like a coincidence to me. And I know that we have people, including the United States Secret Service, who are looking into this to try to get to the bottom of it. And if we find that these were UN staffers who were purposefully trying to trip up, literally trip up, the president and the first lady of the United States, well, there better be accountability for those people. And I will personally see to it, Jesse.
Good.
You'll personally see to it? You'll personally see to it, Karoline Leavitt? What are you going to do? Aggressively overdraw their upper lip lipstick? Are you going to get them? What power do you have? What managerial ability do you have to levy sanctions or punishments on UN staffers, you phony piece of crap? This is not a conspiracy. The call's coming from inside the house, Karoline Leavitt. Your team f***ed it up. Your videographer triggered whatever. Your White House staffer didn't do the teleprompter right. Now you're whining about the audio levels and the Secret Service is going to be looking into this. The Secret Service is going to be looking into the gain on Donald Trump's microphone. You absolute fucking hack. The authoritarian routine, it's just, sometimes it smacks, it's just phony. Yeah, Donald Trump absolutely is ruining civil liberties in this country, attacking this nation, people who are legally here, people who are undocumented, absolutely. People are dying in ICE custody. But sometimes they take a little too far with the nonsense, and this is just another one of those times. It's more important now than ever for us to band together, to put our arms around one another, to find someone in your extended family or friend group that needs the help, that needs the support, that needs the hug. We got to be there for one another. We've got a real problem in America with corporate America, with business leaders. In this case, Apple TV Plus, I think is what they call it. It's not Apple TV, right? There's a plus in there. They all have a plus. They are pulling a television show that they've produced, they approved, they poured millions and millions and millions of dollars hiring writers and producers and cast and crew to produce this program. And now that fascism has landed on the shores of America with Donald Trump, with the USS bloated Donald Trump, they're pulling the show before it even airs. They're postponing the release of a show. Why, you would ask? Why? What would be the contents of this program? This based on a true story, but a fictional account of it. Why would they pull that? What's the show about? It's about hunting white supremacists. It's about an organized effort to infiltrate and take down a network of neo-Nazis. And that apparently is too hot for Apple TV, too close to reality. So they want to send the message that it's too controversial to hunt Nazis. It's too controversial to air that white supremacy is a bad thing that needs to be rooted out. Apple TV, who relies upon democracy to do what they do, who has been afforded through the freedoms provided by the United States, their ability to make billions and billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars with a valuation of well in advance of $1 trillion the company is worth. And they're going to acquiesce to Donald Trump and the racists in the Republican Party and the morons, the fascists who wrote Project 2025 at the Heritage Foundation. Get a load of this headline from Vulture. Apple pulls The Savant from its release schedule. The latest series debut from Apple TV Plus, there it is, Apple TV Plus, has been put on ice. The Savant, a buzzy new Jessica Chastain-led thriller which features themes and storylines that echo recent politically sensitive real-life events, was originally set to premiere this Friday, September 26th, but has been delayed by the streaming service. Apple confirmed on Tuesday. After careful consideration, we have made the decision to postpone The Savant, the streamer said in its statement, which Deadline first reported. We appreciate your understanding and look forward to releasing the series at a future date. That's it? Again, this is what the show contains. While Apple declined to comment on the reasons why, the political violence in the show is thought to be responsible. The show's trailer, which, as of this writing, is still live on YouTube, teases the series' premise. A mother, played by Chastain, works for an anti-hate group and poses as a white supremacist online, acting as a sort of counterinsurgent. She infiltrates extremist forums and works to stop violent threats before they happen. What a dangerous show. Someone trying to stop the dangers of political violence, of white supremacist hate? Oh, we can't have that. White supremacy needs to flourish, says Tim Apple over at Apple TV Plus. As Chastain's character warns in the trailer, which depicts scenes of car bombings, sniper attacks, and arson, we're on the verge of serious violence. That subject matter, which is inspired by a true story from a Cosmopolitan magazine feature, may be a bit too hot for Apple TV Plus following the assassination of Charlie Kirk and other recent examples of political violence in the United States. The blog 9to5Mac was first to report on the show's delay, while its premiere date on Apple's TV portal has changed to coming at a later date. The postponement comes in the immediate wake of the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel last week. He'll be back on the air tonight. This was written yesterday. But about 25% of U.S. markets, those controlled by Sinclair and Nexstar, won't show the broadcast. While it's unclear what in the Savant read as objectionable to Apple TV's decision makers, its delay is emblematic of the heightened caution and scrutiny Hollywood feels as it navigates the Trump administration's media ecosystem. That last sentence is a hell of a way to call people cowards. It's a hell of a milquetoast manner with which to call these people cowards who are not meeting the moment. White supremacy is a scourge on the body politic of the United States. The Republican Party is the largest, most effective, dangerous white supremacy organization on planet Earth. And to call it otherwise is not doing your duty, not living up to the protections of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and your free speech rights. Apple TV. I'm sure the producers are beside themselves with irritation over this, because it's an unintended consequence of the government's crackdown on speech that they're doing this. They don't want Donald Trump to come after iPhone production or whatever other tariff nonsense he could create. There are other mechanisms other than the blunt force of just canceling shows through the government. There are other mechanisms by which they can squelch and diminish free speech in this country, and they're using those levers of power. I would love to know what you think about this. Subscribe to this channel. We're trying to get to 1.5 million before, the end of the year. That would be great. You can take part in that. You can also follow the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily, obviously on Facebook. I keep saying it, and every time I do it, I feel like a dumbass. I guess because I am. Anyway, if you want to talk about this story in the comments, I would love to have a conversation there. We can also have you call the voicemail line, leave me a brief voicemail at 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. Look, we are in the most precarious place in the history of this nation, certainly since the Civil War. What's taking place right now with the fascism and the authoritarianism and the compulsion of Donald Trump to be a dictator type makes the 70s and the late 60s pale in comparison, in my view. They are really, the next tranche of attacks on free speech will come for independent creators. They're not going to just stop with Jimmy Kimmel. It's not even, the harassment of Jimmy Kimmel isn't even over. But let me tell you, when these networks and these streaming services that pay millions, if not tens of millions of dollars to create shows, when they're providing anticipatory obedience, there's not a lot of hope for the rest of us out of power. With the tiny sliver of power that I have with this platform, I cannot imagine, as powerless as I feel, how people with no microphone, with no camera, with no social media following at all, it's got to be disheartening. And that is why, should have started with this, it's more important now than ever for us to band together, to put our arms around one another, to find someone in your extended family or friend group that needs the help, that needs the support, that needs the hug. We got to be there for one another if we're going to get through this. App that outed critics of Charlie Kirk taken down because it leaks personal user data. Chef's kiss of jackassery. Let's call this one, sometimes bad things do happen to bad people. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, a lot of groups popped up and websites popped up trying to out people that weren't sufficiently mournful of the death of Charlie Kirk. People who were just posting quotes of Charlie Kirk's were being outed as celebrating his death. I'm sure I'm on many of these lists, even though I've explicitly said that I condemn political violence, just like I have hundreds of times over thousands of videos in the course of me being on YouTube. But one of those, the app that solicited people's names, like users of the app, to inform on their family, their neighbors, their coworkers, people they saw online. The app leaked data from the people who were doing the informing, the tattletales, the Karens. They have had their user data leaked. Bad things do happen to bad people. This is from this outlet here. App for outing Charlie Kirk's critics leaked its users' personal data. Now, spoiler alert, the app had to be shut down because they're harming the people that they're wanting to be doing the harming of their neighbors and friends and coworkers, right? This is pretty great. An app for anonymously reporting individuals accused of speaking ill against conservative activist Charlie Kirk leaked personal data about its users. The app, known as Cancel the Hate, was taken offline on Thursday amid an investigation into the data leak by Straight Arrow News. Launched in the wake of Kirk's assassination on September 10th, Cancel the Hate aims to, quote, hold individuals accountable for their public words, according to its website. it calls on users to, quote, express concern by submitting, quote unquote, intel on alleged offenders, including their names, locations, and employers. Sounds like Nazi shit, doesn't it? It's a network of informers to out people who aren't sufficiently loyal to the administration or the administration's ideologies or the administration's allies. It's exactly what they're doing. Cancel the Hate highlights a particular interest in medical professionals, quote, whose conduct could endanger patients, the website says, as well as public officials, business owners, entertainers, influencers, teachers, and education administrators. It's not just medical professionals. This was born out of these anti-COVID vaccine conspiracy theorists. We do not seek revenge or mob justice, the website says. Our goal is transparency, to ensure that individuals in positions of power cannot hide hateful words or actions from public scrutiny. They should not be harassed, threatened, or harmed in any way. We're just creating a list so that can happen. We don't want them harmed or harassed, but we want a detailed list of their locations and their employers and their names and their contact information. We see you. Stop or cancel the hate. The app is part of a broader effort among conservatives to punish those who have criticized Kirk or as seen as celebrating his shooting at a speaking event on a Utah college campus. Cancel. Then this goes into the outing of the personal data of these fascist informers. Cancel the Hate says users who submit data on others will not have their own personal details made public. However, a social media style app launched alongside the website appears to have been exposing just that. The flaw in the app, discovered by the security researcher who identifies himself as Bob the Hacker, enabled the exposure of user information such as email addresses and phone numbers, although email addresses were included in the profile's bios by default. Seemingly unbeknownst to many of the platform's users, the data could still be exposed even if privacy settings were enabled to keep it hidden. This reminds me, I'll finish, they reached out to the administrators of Cancel the Hate and they didn't get a response. But this reminds me, remember when I think it was Parler or one of those dipshit Twitter clone right-wing nutter butter apps that was created, and during the insurrection, all of the photos that were shared and the posts that were shared, they all kept all the metadata. It didn't scrub the metadata off all of the photos. So the FBI at the time, before it was run by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, the FBI that actually had some semblance of credibility, they were able to use all the metadata from the photos to find out where the photo was taken, who took it, and all of those details. This is the same kind of thing. These are feckless Republicans who can't stop to protect their own users. They just want to enlist them, solicit their harassment of fellow citizens without any concern for their own personal data, without any concern for their own personal safety. It's fantastic. And then again, this is from Raw Story. Sarah Burris, who does a great job over there. App that outed critics of Charlie Kirk taken down because it leaks personal user data. What is it? Chef's kiss of jackassery. What a great way to end the day. What a great way to end today's program. I would appreciate if you would subscribe, if you appreciate what I do, if you find value in what I do. It's free to subscribe. We're really marching ahead to 1.5 million subscribers. I keep talking about it today because I'm excited. And with your help, we can get there. We are over 17,000 over on Facebook. Follow the page, Dollemore Daily. I would love and appreciate that very much. And I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.